we have discussed in the previous session. Okay, so in the previous session we have discussed about how locators are used to locate or find an element in the DOM, and how XPath is one type of locator, and in that we saw how to basically work with relative XPath altogether, right? And in this session we're going to talk about the XPath functions as a locator, and in that we'll look at a few common XPath functions like text, contains, and so on. Okay, so let's get started. So by now we know that XPath is a very powerful locator in Selenium, and it can be used to accurately locate web elements based on their attributes, based on their positions or text content altogether, right? And XPath basically means XML path language. So it's a commonly used language to locate elements within the DOM, and you can think of it like a language that helps us navigate and search for specific elements within the HTML DOM. Okay, and when it comes to using XPath in Selenium, there are a few commonly used approaches as we have discussed so far, right? We have seen about absolute XPath, we have seen about relative XPath, there's XPath access, XPath functions, and so on and so forth, right? So in this session we'll be focusing on the XPath functions. Okay, now let's take an e-commerce application to understand this better. All right, so till now we have seen an e-commerce application called as Next Trends, and we have successfully tested various functionalities on it, right? We have logged in into the application, navigated to the home page, navigated to the products page, and we also verified the display of the products. Okay, so we performed all of these automation tests by applying various concepts in Selenium locators. Okay, so in this session we'll be focusing on testing the functionality of the products page and the products details page. Okay, right, so we'll be verifying whether the products are actually displayed correctly onto the products page, and we'll also try to ensure that the product details are accurately presented on the product details page or not. Okay, so now if you want to test the functionality as we discussed, how would you do it manually? Firstly, we'll try to select a product from the list of products, and then we'll try to verify if we are redirected to the products details page, and then we'll also try to verify the product details that are present, and we'll check whether they are displayed correctly or not, right? Now in the usual case, we'll obviously create the project, and then we would write the test for login functionality, we'll write a test for navigating to the home page, navigating to the products page, verifying the display of the products, and so on, right? But this time, instead of doing the same steps as usual, what we have done is we have provided you with the initial code in the reading material. Okay, so all you have to do is you can click on the link in the reading material and you'll download the initial code. Okay, and a zip file should be downloaded onto your system, and you can save the file anywhere in your system. However, it is suggested that you can keep the file in the same location where you have created the previous project sessions altogether, right? So once you have moved the project folder to its required location, you can actually extract the zip file and open the project Java files using IntelliJ. Okay, let me just quickly show you how it is. Okay, so what I've done is, for the sake of this session, I've already downloaded the zip file and kept it on my desktop, basically where I'm actually creating my projects. Okay, so you just need to extract it and open this particular folder using IntelliJ. Okay, right, so in this case I've already opened the IntelliJ application and I've already imported this particular folder. Okay, and this is how your initial code will look like. This is basically whatever we have written so far. Okay, right, and you need to make sure that the system.setProperty line has the specific path for the Chrome driver.exe file that you have in your system. Okay, once you set it up, we can just simply run the code, right? So we'll just click on run and let's see what happens. So as you can see, we have logged in, gone to the products page, and we were able to see the products altogether, and we were able to see that the products are displayed successfully on the products page as well. Okay, right, so this will basically be our initial code, and on top of this we'll start building our entire code base altogether. Okay, let's get back. So basically the given initial code will have the code to perform all the tests for login, homepage navigation, navigating to the products functionality, basically all the tests that we have performed in the previous sessions, right? Like launching the Chrome browser, navigating to the login page, we'll enter the username and password, then we'll click on the login button, right? And if we are successfully logged in, we should be able to see the home page, and on the home page we'll locate and click on the shop now button, and then we should be able to redirect to the products page, and finally we should be able to validate that the products are actually displayed or not. Okay, so all these steps in our test scenario will be present in the initial code for you. Okay, and it will look something like this as we have seen just now. Okay, and we executed the code, we were able to see the expected results as well. Okay, right, so now we have configured our initial code altogether, right? So now we'll start testing it altogether. Okay, and for that our test scenario, basically whatever steps we need to do in the testing process, it will include selecting a specific product from the list of products that are shown over there, right, and verifying that we are actually able to redirect to the products details page, and we'll also need to verify that the product details that are shown correctly or not. Okay, so we need to make sure that we give explicit instructions to our program. That is, we should specifically tell our program which element to locate, how to locate it, and what action to perform on it. Okay, and we also need to ensure that that particular located element is a unique element altogether. Okay, so just think about it. How do we locate a particular item uniquely? We'll either use the class name or the element type or some or the other kind of approach, right? So let's take a look at what we can do to select it. Okay, let's take a look at it. All right, so in this case, let me just minimize these things, and I already have the web page open over here. Okay, so let me just log in right away. The username would be Rahul and the password would be rahul@2021. Okay, and we have logged in, and as per manual testing, we are supposed to click on shop now. And let's say we want to identify this minifigures element, and as you can see there, it's a pointer icon. So let's just right click on it, click on inspect, and let's see what it says. So it is an anchor element. If you observe over here, this entire minifigures by Lego and this image and this entire thing is actually an anchor element. Okay, now let's say we want to select this particular anchor element using the relative XPath locator, and let's say because it's an anchor element, so what we'll do is we'll go to this list item. There are multiple list items over here. We'll select the anchor item, and then we'll start writing the relevant relative XPath for it. Okay, but if you observe over here, the other elements are also, like other products are also anchor elements. If you observe over here, where the class is link item, class equal to link item, and so on and so forth, right? So there are multiple elements, web elements, that are anchor elements, and multiple elements whose class name is also link item, right? Link hyphen item. Okay, let's get back. Now, as we have observed that we have multiple web elements with the class attribute value set to link item. That means in this case, we cannot identify a particular product in a unique manner using the class attribute, right? So let's see if we can use the title class attribute altogether. Okay, let's check it out. Now, if you look over here, like if we just need the minifigures, like for example, you can see hair dryer over here, minifigures over here, lightweight tripod over here, right? So all these three are heading elements, H1 elements, right? So even if you look at it, let's say I open the hair dryer image. Okay, so under this we have H1 class equal to title. Similarly, for minifigures also it is same, right? So H1 class equal to title minifigures, right? So it's the same over here. If you observe here also, there are multiple elements within the class attribute which has the class attribute value as title. Okay, right? And obviously when we have multiple web elements with the same class name, here also we won't be able to uniquely identify the element that we want, right? Let's get back. So basically, when there are multiple instances like this, how do we locate the product uniquely? That's the fundamental question, right? So that is where the XPath functions come into picture. Okay, so as we know, XPath functions is one of the most commonly used approaches for locating elements using XPath, right? And you can think of these XPath functions as special functions that will help us perform different kind of operations on elements based on certain conditions or criteria. Okay, and in contrast to the more generic absolute XPath or relative XPath, these XPath functions, they allow us to perform more specific searches and more specific operations on elements. Like you can find elements based on their text content, you can identify them based on their attribute values, and so on. Okay, and moreover, Selenium provides multiple XPath functions altogether, right? And some of the most commonly used XPath functions are text, contains, starts with, ends with, position, and so on. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one, the text function in the XPath functions. Okay, so this text function basically selects the elements based on their text content. Okay, so it's used to locate elements based on the text that is shown over here. Okay, now like the typical syntax of the text function looks something like this. You'll have double slash, the tag name, in square brackets, obviously you'll mention the condition, right? And what is the condition? You'll mention the text function equal to whichever text element you want to mention, right? That is the double slash, the double forward slash basically means we are telling the program to search for a specific element at any level of the document, regardless of its position, right? The tag name represents the web element we want to identify. It could be the H1 tag, paragraph tag, and so on and so forth. Okay, and the text method will return the text of the web element identified by the tag name. Okay, and it compares the value with whatever string we have provided on the right side. Okay, so the text of the element is basically where we'll add the actual initial text we want to match. Okay, it should be surrounded by single quotes to mention it as a string value. Okay, let's take an example to understand this better. Let's say we have a web page with the HTML structure as shown. Okay, so we have a div element, a parent element as the top level one, and it has two direct child paragraph elements and one nested div element altogether, right? So this nested div element in turn, it also has one paragraph element altogether, right? Now let's say we just want to locate the paragraph element where the text is written as child2. Okay, and let's say we want to use the XPath functions for it. So the XPath function expression would be something like this, /p, because the paragraph element where the text function should match the child2 value. Okay, right? So this XPath expression will basically select all the paragraph elements that have the exact same text content called as child2. Okay, and if you break it down, we basically want to select the element, the paragraph element, which has a text called child2, right? So the / basically says that we can search for that mentioned element, the paragraph element, from wherever in the document. So we'll write /p, and in the text method basically looks for a specific text content that we give, right? In this case, it's child2. Okay, and on the whole, this expression, it identifies the web element that has the exact specified text. Okay, right? Now let's try to locate the product uniquely using the product title text. Okay, and we already have the initial code for it. And if you remember, we already tested the number of products being displayed on the products page, right? So what we'll do now is we'll write the code for locating the product using title, right? And we'll do it inside the if condition, because we can locate the products only if there are products displayed on the page, right? So how do we identify or select a particular element in such scenarios? We'll typically use the web element class, right? And then we'll create a new variable where our Chrome browser instance will try to find the element by its XPath function as given over here, right? So let's try this out. So basically what we need to do is we need to identify the heading called as minifigures. Okay, let's say this is our target altogether. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just simply click on inspect, and here I can see the h1 class equal to title minifigures. Now if you observe over here, all these elements are of the same element type, whereas the text is differing, right? So the text is varying. Here it is hair dryer, here it is minifigures, and so on and so forth, right? So we should have understood by now that out of all the heading elements, their texts are different. Okay, right? So here we'll basically choose minifigures. So what we'll do is we'll just add it into our code altogether. Okay, right? So let me just minimize this and go to our code. And remember, we are going to add it inside this if condition, right? If the product size of greater than 0, right? So the product size condition is greater than 0, then we are printing that products are displayed successfully, right? So only under that condition should we be able to actually start working with the products page, right? So what we'll do is we'll just select the product with text as minifigures. Okay, right? So that's our objective over here. And how do we create a new web element? We'll use the web element class. Okay, so we'll just write web element and let's call it product name element, right? So product name element, okay, equal to because we already have our Chrome driver defined. So what we'll do is we'll ask our Chrome driver dot find element, which by what? XPath, right? And here we are using XPath functions. So what we'll need to do is inside this, we'll need to specifically mention which particular element we are going to choose, on what basis are we going to choose, right? So what is the element? We need to mention // first, because we want to search everywhere in the document. Okay, and if you observe over here, it is the h1 class, right? So h1 element. So we'll just simply mention h1, and in the square brackets, this is exactly where we'll mention the condition. Okay, right? So we'll just write text of, because we are basically matching the text, equal to, and in single quotes, let me just close this. So yeah, in single quotes, we need to mention minifigures, right? So let's just copy it from here and we'll just paste it over here, right? So if you observe, I've tested it manually, right? So we have opened the page, checked out whether the heading is minifigures or not, and so on and so forth. And now we are trying to automate the process altogether. Okay, and for that we already have written an entire initial code, and under this if the product size is greater than 0, it means that we can go forward with the testing, right? Okay, so that is where we have already written the product name element equal to wherever it matches as minifigures. Okay, right? And then let's also create another string so that we can get the text altogether. Okay, and let's see if the text is exactly matching with minifigures or not. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just write string and let's call it the expected product title. Okay, right? So let's just write expected product title equal to, and this particular product name element dot get text. Okay, so when you run this particular function, what happens is whatever product is identified or whatever element is identified, that element's text is stored into this particular variable. Okay, right? And let's say we want to basically print it out. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll write system.out.println of, and we'll just write this expected product title. Okay, right? So let's just save this, let's run the code and see what happens. So the browser opens, we are able to log in, it navigates and it gets closed also. And if you observe over here, let me just, maximize this. So the navigation to home page was successful. The products page was also successful. Products are displayed successfully. And because we were actually able to match the given text with the product elements text, right? So we basically were able to print it out. Okay, right? Let's get back. So as we know, an important step in automation testing is that we should be able to locate a particular element correctly. And in the current scenario, we just wanted to locate the H1 element whose text was minifigures, and we were able to successfully do it, right? So now that we have located it, we need to interact with it, right? And how do we interact with it? If in the manual approach we were doing it, we would click on it, right? We would click on the element so that we'll navigate to another page altogether. Okay, so let's do the same over here, right? So what I'll do now is, instead of printing the text over here, what I'll do is I'll perform an action, a click action. Okay, so simply what I'll do is product name element dot click. Okay, so when you click on it, basically it should navigate to another page, right? So let's say like if you have the minifigures over here, if I click on this, it should take me to the relevant product description page, right? If you observe over here, we have the URL product/1002, and this is where you are able to see the entire description of the products, right? So we have done it visually as in manually. Now let's do it programmatically as well, right? So what have we done over here? We have created a new product element, basically a variable or an instance of web element, where the information from this particular element that is identified using XPath by the Chrome driver, right? So that is stored over here, and we are just interacting with it. We are sending a click action over there. Okay, right? Let's just run it over. Alright, so the browser opened, we were able to log in, the automation happened, and because the driver is quitting, let's just quickly comment this so that we are able to see whether we are actually able to navigate to the page or not. Okay, right? So let me just run this again. So the browser opened, we were successfully able to log in, send the details and all, and the click happened, and we are able to see the same page as we see over here in our browser. Okay, right? So this is the manual testing approach, and this is our automated test software window. Okay, right? So we were actually able to perform this entire action altogether, right? Let me just close this and let's get back. So we have successfully tested if we can automate the selection of a specific product from a list of products altogether, right? And we visually saw, and as in we manually saw, if we are redirected to the product page details or not, right? Okay, for that we just need to compare the redirected URL with the URL that is expected. Okay, as in if we want to automate this entire step, we need to just validate whether we have actually redirected to the relevant page or not, right? So what we'll do is we'll just simply define the expected URL as the product detail URL in a string. Okay, and as we already know, certain pages might take some time to load, and in such cases we just need to make sure that our program waits for a while until the suitable environment is ready and then grabs the current URL. Okay, so we'll use the wait method from the Selenium library to write our waiting statement as wait until the expected conditions match. Okay, and what are the expected conditions over here? The URL should be equal to the product details URL, right? You are basically telling our program to wait until the loaded URL is equal to the product details URL or not. Okay, right? And finally, we'll take this expected URL and match it with the loaded or the current URL. And so for that, we'll write the code as it is shown over here, right? Okay, let's try this out. So basically what happens over here is we are able to navigate to the products description page, right? Or product details page. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just quickly copy this URL because we'll need it, right? And under this, let's say we just want to validate whether we have actually navigated to the URL or not. Okay. So what we'll do is let's create a new string. Let's call it, string product or product details URL. Okay. So product details URL equal to, in double quotes, we'll just add it. This is basically our expected URL. And as we always know, it takes certain amount of time for pages to load. So what we'll do is we'll ask our program to wait until a particular condition is matched. Okay, so in this case, expected conditions are matched. And what are the expected conditions? The URL should be equal to the product details URL. Okay, right? So we'll ask it to wait for that time, and only after that it should execute. Okay, right? And then we also need to have the current URL over here, right? So what we'll do is we'll just write string current URL equal to, right? As part of this, what we'll do is we'll ask our driver to get the current URL. Okay, right? And obviously we need to compare both of the URLs over here. So we'll write another if statement if the condition is pretty straightforward, right? So the current URL dot equals the expected URL, as in the product details URL. So what we'll do is we'll just paste it over here. What should be the condition? We should basically print a statement saying navigation to the product details page is successful. Okay, so let's just write system.out.println saying that navigation to the product details page is successful. Okay, right? So let's just put a couple of exclamation marks over here. And if this basically navigates, we should be able to see this particular statement. Okay, right? So let's run the code and see what happens. All right, so we were able to successfully navigate to the page, and let's see if we got the message or not. Navigation to the product details page is successful. Okay, right? So for now, because we need to close the window as well, I'll just quickly uncomment this particular statement. All right, so driver.quit, and we'll take care of it at a later point. Okay, let's get back. Now we have basically validated that the page is loaded after we clicked on the element, right? And whatever page was loaded, it's validated that we have, it is the same one that we are expecting. But there is another thing that we need to check. That is, are the product details loaded or not? I mean, see, we can't simply say a test is completed unless and until we test everything, right? So how would you verify that a page elements are loaded? We basically need to look at them, right? And obviously by now we should already know that sometimes elements on a web page may not be immediately visible when the page loads, even though the current URL is updated. They could require some time to load. Okay, so here also let's add a small waiting duration so that our program verifies if the elements are loaded properly after waiting for them to load. Okay, and which class or method do we use to make our program wait? The wait method, right? That is, we need to add a wait mechanism until the product details success view web element is visible on the page. Okay, right? So let's write our code. But before that, let's take a look at the browser. Okay, right? So if you look over here, let's just go to the home. We'll click on shop now, and we are basically in the products page, right? So over here, if you look at it, we just clicked on minifigures, and here let's say once we right click on this and click on inspect, here you'll be able to see the product details success view, right? So this is basically the entire element that contains all these products, right? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll validate whether this particular element is loaded or not, right? So we'll just quickly copy this product details success view. Okay, so basically what we are going to tell our program is we'll ask it to wait until this particular element is visible or not. Okay, right? So let's go to the code, and what we'll do is we'll just quickly add a statement saying wait until, right? So wait until the expected conditions visibility of elements located by so and so is existing or not. Okay, right? So we are basically telling our program to wait until that particular container element is loaded. Okay, right? So let's just write wait until the expected conditions match the condition that visibility of element located, right? And under this, how do we want to identify it? Using an XPath function, right? Okay, or else basically a basic XPath altogether, right? So let's just say we'll write by dot XPath, right? So how are we going to validate it? Based on a particular XPath, if the visibility of element mentioned by this particular XPath is loaded, we just want it to wait until and unless it gets loaded. The program should not move forward. Okay, right? So what we'll do is we'll just give a relative XPath over here, right? So because it's a container element, so what we'll do is in double quotes, or let's just say in single quotes, we'll just mention /div, right? So we are looking for a div element. Okay, and as part of that, what is the condition? We need to have the class name equal to product details success view, right? So what we'll do is because we have a specific information over here, we are just going to use the relative XPath. Okay, so we'll just write class equal to in double quotes, or maybe let's just say single quotes. We'll just paste it over here, and the outer ones we'll just convert it into double quotes altogether, right? So let's just say yeah, and then let's just put a semicolon over here. Okay, so basically what we have done is we have asked our program to wait until these expected conditions are met. Okay, and what are the expected conditions? This visibility of element located. How are we locating it? Using the XPath, and here in this case we are using the relative XPath altogether, right? Okay, so we are telling our program to wait until this particular container element is loaded and it becomes visible on the web page, and once the element is visible, the code can continue with further execution. Okay, right? So let's just save this and run the code. And we were able to see that the navigation to the product details page is successful altogether. Okay, right? Chalo, let's get back. So we were able to successfully validate if the user is redirected to the correct page or not. Okay, now the next step is to check if the product details are present and displayed correctly. Okay, so in the more general scenario, because we are performing a test of the products page functionality, you should be ideally testing everything on the page. That is, you'll try to verify whether all the product details, the heading, the image, and everything is displayed as expected or not. But for now, let's only test the product title part. And what's the product title over here? Minifigures, right? So as usual, the code to select the required element would be a web element. We'll just call it as product title element equal to driver.find element by XPath, and we'll just give it the text function over here, right? And we'll create another string called as actual product title, and we'll grab the product title elements, get text altogether, right? So basically, if you break it down, if you break this entire command down, so we are basically asking our web element to create a new variable called as product title element, and it will represent the element that you want to locate on the web page, right? So and this driver.find element by XPath basically uses Selenium's find element method to locate the element using XPath expression. And here we are basically looking for a heading one, and which has a content called as minifigures. Okay, right? And this entire information gets stored in the actual product title. Okay, so in short, the purpose of this code is to find the heading element which has the text minifigures on the web page and retrieve whatever text is visible over there, right? And then that retrieved text content is stored in the actual product title variable for further use or verification, right? And then once it is done, we'll then compare the product title with the actual product title and check if it's matching or not, right? If it doesn't match, we'll simply print a statement saying that the actual product name is not matching. Okay, let's try this out as well. All right, so under this, let's just go over here and we'll add our code over here. Okay, right? So what are we going to do? We are going to create a new product title element. Okay, so we'll just write web element, product title element, right? So let's just call it product title element equal to, because we are asking our Chrome driver to find a particular element using XPath where the text actually matches minifigures. So what we'll do is we'll just simply write driver dot find element by XPath, where we are going to mention the condition over here, right? So in double quotes, where we just want it to search for the entire document, where it will find a h1 element, and in this square brackets we'll just write that the text should be equal to, right? So let's just text equal to, in single quotes we'll just write minifigures, right? And as you see, we already have the minifigures over here. Let's just copy paste it. Okay, we'll just put it over here, put a semicolon, right? So basically what happens is the Chrome driver will try to find the element based on this particular XPath and store the element into product title element. Okay, right? And then we just need to get the title from there, right? So what we'll do is we'll create another string called a string actual product, let's just call it actual product title. Okay, right? So actual product title equal to, what we'll do is we'll just write product title element dot get text off, right? So as a result, what will happen is whichever element gets selected over here, the text from that particular element will get stored in the actual product title variable, right? Okay, now if you remember, we had actually defined the expected product title earlier, right? So if you look over here, we can see the expected product title somewhere around here, right? So as you can see over here, we can see the expected product title. Okay, so we'll just simply try comparing that expected product title with the current actual product title and if it matches or not, right? So let's just write another if condition over here. If the expected product title dot equals the actual product title, so what should happen? We should basically print a statement saying the product name is so and so, right? Let's just write system dot out dot println, right? And we'll just say the product name is colon, we'll just give it a space and plus let's just add the actual product title over here. Okay, right? And if it doesn't match, what happens? We'll write the else statement saying that system dot out dot println, where we'll just write a statement saying that actual product name is not as expected product name, right? So actual product name doesn't match the expected product name. All right, so let's just see, let's just clear this off, and yeah. All right, so all we need to do now is simply run the code and see whether it works or not. Okay, right, so let's just run it. All right, so here you can see that the product name is minifigures, which basically means this particular action of identifying whether the product details are loaded properly or not is done. Okay, let's get back. So once we execute our code, we were able to successfully check that our product details are loaded correctly or not, right? Moving on, in certain cases, the product title that is displayed on the details page, it might be different from the title on the products page. That is, they might be using a short title, right? For example, let's take the Flipkart product details page, right? On the right side, you see the full title with all the details and all. On the left side, the same product title is a little shorter, right? So this usually happens when the page is resized or is viewed in a smaller browser window. Okay, so let's see how we can handle this case altogether, right? You see, just like the text method or the text function, Selenium also provides the contains method or contains function, right? So this contains function can be used to create an XPath expression when we want to locate an element using a partial text like a substring. Okay, or we can also give it a partial attribute value as well. Okay, and the typical syntax for this will be something like this: double slash, which means it can search for anywhere in the entire DOM, right? And we'll mention the tag name, basically the element name. In the square brackets, we'll mention the condition, right? And here, what is the condition? We are going to use the contains function. Okay, so we'll write contains @attribute and whatever partial value we want to provide. Okay, so @attribute is basically the attribute of the web element, and partial value of the attribute or the text element together. Okay, right? So for example, let's say we are looking for the h1 element that contains the partial string minifig in its test, right? So we'll typically write the expression something like this: double slash h1, which basically means select all the h1 elements in the existing DOM based on what condition? Which contains a text called as minifig. Okay, so if you break it down, the double forward slash basically tells our program that we want to search for the entire document for the specified element. Okay, and h1 basically is the tag name of the element that we want to select, and this contains text of minifig is basically the condition that filters the elements based on their text content. Okay, it uses the contains function to check if the text contents basically contains the provided substring, and minifig is the substring that we want to match. Okay, so basically instead of checking the whole text in the strings, we can ask our program to locate the elements where a particular set of characters, in this case minifig, is matching. Okay, so let's apply this to our code. So as you can see here in the code, we have replaced the entire string minifigures with a smaller string called as minifig. Okay, let's check this out. All right, so here we can see that web element product title element equal to driver dot find element by XPath of, where the h1 element matches which basically has a text called as minifigures. Okay, so what we'll do is, let's see if we can filter or if we can basically apply the same condition with a smaller string or a substring altogether using the contains function. Okay, right, so all we have to do is, let's just cut this off, text of equal to minifigures part. Okay, so now we want our driver, Chrome driver, to find an element by the XPath based on a particular condition, and that condition is based out of the contains function. Okay, so what we'll do is, we'll write contains of the contains method, and inside this we'll write the condition as text. We need to find a particular text which matches this minifig, right? So instead of writing minifigures, we'll write minifig, right? Minifig. Okay, and you need to ensure that the substring is relevant to the main string that you're looking for. Okay, right, so let's save this, let's run this and see what happens. So as you can see, the entire code ran without any kind of error altogether, and we were still able to see that the product name is minifigures. Okay, let's get back. So there is no change in the output, right? So we executed the code and there is no change in the output. So instead of using the text function, we can also use the contains function, right? So let's apply the same concept to verify the product description to see if it is displayed as expected or not. But if you observe over here, the product description is too large for us to write and test, right? So what we'll do is, we'll take a small part of it and we'll see. Okay, so first we'll define a web element instance called as product description element. Okay, product desc and we'll get the text inside it. Okay, and then we'll define another string, our expected description, with the entire description. If you want, you can copy it from the web page. Okay, and as usual, we can compare them using the if statement, and if the description matches, well and good. If not, we can mention that the actual description doesn't match. Okay, so let's try this out as well. Okay, right, so if you see over here in the browser, let me just close this. Here we can see that collect all mystery minifigures in the new series 11 and so on and so forth, right? So let's just copy this particular text. I'll just quickly copy it, and we'll go to the product description page, right? Okay, so what we need to do is, we need to write a new element over here, right? So we'll just write web element, and what will we name it as? Product description element, right? So because we want to test a product description, so we'll write product description element equal to, we'll ask the driver or Chrome driver to find an element based on the XPath. Okay, we'll based on the XPath, where it's a paragraph element. If you observe over here, if you right click on this and click on inspect, you'll see that this is a paragraph element where the class is product description. But as we already know, every other element also will have a similar paragraph with a similar description. We'll have to use something unique, right? And instead of using the entire text, we'll see if a particular string or substring is inside with whatever text we identify. Okay, in our case, we'll choose mystery minifigures or something like that. Okay, right, so we'll just write a paragraph element based on what condition it should contain, right? So it should contain, contains text of, right? So we need to write the text method which matches, let's say, instead of writing the entire thing all together, let's say if it matches this mystery minifigures. Okay, right, so we'll write mystery space mini hyphen figures, right? So you just need to be very, very careful when you're writing things like this, because the spelling mistakes could happen. Okay, right, now, so this is the product description element altogether. So we need to get the text out of it, right? So we'll just write string, we'll just write actual product description. Okay, so we'll just write product description, okay, equal to, we'll just get product description elements get text. Okay, right, so we'll just write a product description element dot get text of. Okay, so this should basically gather all the text that from the element that matches this particular subtext. Okay, right, so let's also define the expected product description. Okay, we'll write string expected description equal to, let's just copy this part. Okay, we'll just Control C, Control V over here. In double quotes, we have just pasted it like this and given it a semicolon. All right. Now, we basically what we have done is we have created a new element instance where our Chrome driver will find the element based on the XPath called as /p contains the text called as mystery minifigures. Okay, right. So if you observe over here, this string mystery minifigures is actually present in the expected description as well, right? But we are able to confirm it visually. We need to confirm it programmatically. Okay, right. So what we'll do, we'll just simply write an if condition. Okay, right. So what we'll do is we'll just go over here, we'll just write an if condition. Okay, so what is the condition? If the expected description matches the actual product description, right? So we'll just write if, in the brackets we'll write expected description dot equals of this actual product description, right? So let's just copy paste it over here. Then what should happen? We should print a statement saying system dot out dot println the description is so and so, right? So we'll just write system dot out dot println of the description is colon, and we'll just concatenate strings over here, the actual product description. All right. If it doesn't match, what should we do? Else the condition should be something like this, right? So we'll just print a statement that says the product description doesn't match. Okay, right? Or we can simply say that the actual description is not the same as expected description. Okay, right? So we can just simply write it over here, system dot out dot println of, in double quotes, actual product description does not match the expected description. Okay, right? So let's just try running it. So let's just right click, run products, and let's see what happens. So the browser window opens, we are successfully able to log in. All the automated steps go on seamlessly, okay? And it takes some time to load and it gets closed. And because we were actually able to grab the exact element, we are able to see that the if condition was true. And we are able to see that the description is, and whatever actual description it was gathered, okay? Right? Let's get back. So similarly, you can verify the other product details as well. Okay. Now, finally, let's add the quit method, which we have already done. And obviously, to add the quit method, you'll be like driver.quit off, and we can execute it accordingly. Okay. Right. So till now, what we have done is we have learned about the text function and the contains function, and we use them to perform an automated test scenario on our e-commerce application. Right. In addition to the discussed functionality, the contains function can also be used when a part of the attribute value changes dynamically. Right. And these functions can identify any attribute by using its partial value. Okay. For example, in real world applications, we may encounter scenarios where a part of the attribute value changes dynamically, right? So in such situations, we should be able to handle the testing appropriately, right? So let's see how we can modify the XPath expression to identify the p web element with an ID attribute, right? So here, as you can see over here, we can give a small subpart of the expected attribute as a value to the contains function, and it will also work even then, right? And the syntax for this would be something like this, right? So /p contains @id equal to, if you observe over there, we are looking for the word called as child, and if you take ILD, it's a substring of child, right? So you can directly compare it accordingly, right? So by using this particular expression, the XPath processor will search the entire document for any and every paragraph elements, and it will only select those that have an ID attribute which contain the substring called as ILD. Okay, and this isn't the only approach. You can also identify using the substring called as child, and you can experiment with it. Okay, right? So till now we are done with text and contains methods in the XPath functions, and more information about the XPath functions will be available for you in your cheat sheets. Okay, right? Moving on, let's discuss an interesting question over here, right? So if you remember, we have added multiple wait statements across our code. Basically, we have asked our program to wait for elements, URLs, etc. to load, and only after the elements are loaded, only then the program will continue. But the fundamental question is, what will happen if any of the elements that we are waiting for is not found or not loaded? That is, if any of the wait method fails, there is a chance that the entire code might behave in an unexpected manner, right? So basically, when any of the elements that we are waiting for using the wait.until method is not found within the specified timeout period, a timeout exception will be thrown. Okay, and to handle such kind of exceptions, we can actually wrap the entire code within a try catch block. And as you might already know, a try-catch block is used in programming to handle exceptions or errors that might occur during the execution of code, right? And because we are a little doubtful about the wait functionality, we can actually use the try-catch block to handle any kind of exceptional cases or errors or unexpected behavior altogether, right? So what we can do is we can take this entire code and we can put it inside the try block and add a catch block to identify if there are any kind of unexpected issues. Okay, and in the catch block, if it identifies any error or exception, we can ask our program to show the description of the error altogether, right? So what we'll do now is we'll just apply the try catch method over here, try catch block over here. We'll make a deliberate modification, a mistake, and see how the try catch block works. Okay, right? So what we'll do is under the main method, whatever code we have under the main method, let's just select it up until the driver.quit method. Okay, we'll cut it over here, and under this particular main method we need to add the try catch block. Okay, right? We'll just write try off, and under this we'll need to write the catch expression as well, right? So catch, it will catch an exception called as E, and under this let's just say system.out. We'll just add a system out.println and print statement saying that an exception occurred with a description of it, right? So what we'll do is we'll write system.out.println, and under that we'll just simply say that an exception occurred, and we'll just add it with the basic message, right? So let me just give a space over here. We'll just add, and whatever exception is caught in the variable E, we'll just add it over here, E dot, and we'll just write the get message function or method over here, right? So get message. Okay, right? And whatever code we have cut so far, we'll just paste it inside the try block. Okay, right? So this should ideally work because there is no error so far, right? Let's just run and see what happens. All right, so as you can see, everything worked perfectly fine because there was no error altogether, right? So what we'll do is we'll just look for the visibility of elements located, and instead of giving product details success view, we'll just replace product with pro. Okay, and we have made a deliberate mistake over here. Let's see what kind of exception we'll see over here, right? So we'll just run the code again. All right, so as you can see over here, the browser isn't closing. Okay, because if you observe, we have basically given it a wrong reference altogether. And so what happens is, up until this particular part, navigation to product details page is successful, and after that you can see that an exception has occurred. Basically the program went into the catch block, and the catch block started executing saying an exception occurred, and it will show a message saying that expected condition failed. It is waiting for the visibility of element located by whichever XPath we have given. It had tried for x and x number of seconds, and so on and so forth, right? So when we see an exception message like this, we can then take appropriate actions to fix the issues altogether, right? So we have tried out the try catch block also, and if we understood that it can also help us in debugging any kind of issues altogether. Okay, let's get back. So we saw how the try catch block caught an exception and how exactly it showed you a message, right? So on the whole, in this session, let's quickly summarize. On the whole, in this session, we learned about the XPath functions.